The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Nick Fantasy. Sign up the promo code SGPN to get 50% off a deposit bonus up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football in the NFL with Rhythm. Get her setting for today. Looking to sportsgambling.com/RATHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It's currently Monday morning, roughly 1 a.m. Eastern Time on October 21st. I'm Rosso, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Should be a fun episode because it's time to get into two more ATP events. It's time to get into Basel and Vienna. So we're going to preview both those events with the outrights, of course, and getting into the lock and dog picks for the first round at the end of the show. Before we do that, do want to remind everyone once again to like, subscribe on YouTube, and a reminder, please leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. It does go a long way. So if you're listening to the podcast audio only on Spotify or Apple, or you are joining me on the YouTube channel, then welcome. Hopefully you enjoy the content. And a reminder, you can show support by either liking and subscribing, closing on 600 subscribers for the channel. And a reminder, on Spotify or Apple, you can definitely still show support by leaving a rating and a review. Plus, a reminder, check out the merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great Tennis Game Podcast merch. We have sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs, all high quality, all affordable. We also have different colors for the shirts. So once again, different options. I recommend getting yourself something from the merch store. Now, also a reminder, I talk about the actual network. A reminder that there is a contest going on from the NBA Gambling Podcast. Show them on. The NBA season does start tomorrow, actually, on Tuesday. And the NBA Gambling Podcast is hosting a win totals contest. Winner gets a $250 SGPN gift card. Head to sportsgamepodcast.com/NBA contest to enter today before the season starts. sportsgamepodcast.com/NBA contest. And a reminder, thank you once again for tuning into the Tennis Gambling Podcast. If you could also head over to Spotify, leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Only you can help prevent corporate gambling from taking over. Anyway, starting off with the actual recap from the matches on Sunday, starting off with the lock and dog picks. Overall decent, just couldn't really get the sweep there as the events went on, but we did end up winning the lock as we had Kashanov team total over 13 at -115 on believe that was offshore. Point is, though, was really never that in doubt as the match went to 3 sets. Ended up getting Kashanov home as he won in 3. Nice match, though. It was fun. Diallo played, I'd say, well, but Kashanov was a bit too rock solid, and he got the job done eventually as the match went over, and ended up working out in pretty much the exact same script we thought it was going to be in. Thought Kashanov would start off well, just based on his experience in this moment, and Diallo would come out flat. He did, as he ended up losing 6-2 in the first set. Then he bounced back, won the second at 7-5, and then Kashanov got the job done 6-3 in the final. So thought it'd be a 3-set marathon. It was, and Kashanov won. Nice win there for the lock. For the dog, picked the over 2.5 sets in the Dimitrov and Paul match at around +135. Wasn't close as Dimitrov got buried. At the end of the day, I understand Dimitrov was potentially fatigued after that marathon match in the semis, but I did think he would put up a better fight than that. Dimitrov just seemed like he was a little bit, I don't want to say out of sorts, but it just felt like Paul was a bit more comfortable throughout the entire match. Saw Paul get broken twice, saw Dimitrov get broken 4 times. The real story, though, was the second serve points. Paul won 70% of his second serve points. Dimitrov won 36. It's pretty difficult to win when the guy's winning about 2 times the percentage on second serve points than you, and Dimitrov just couldn't defend the second serve well enough as he lost in straight sets. However, Paul winning did work out in our favor. To be honest, we would have won outright either way because we had Dimitrov and Paul both at +550, but we did win 2 outrights for the actual tournaments. So starting off with the Paul match, said before, +550. We had Dimitrov at 550 as well. So that match didn't really matter. We're automatically going to make some units, and we did. Nice win there for Paul, who I believe did not drop a set in the entire event. So Paul was definitely coasting for basically the entire tournament. He had a potential, I'd say, danger spot against Kekmanovic in the first set there, but he didn't drop a set, and he went 8-0 in sets. As for the other outright that we won, had Kashanov at 7-1. He got the job done there. Overall, can't complain. I thought he looked sharp. It was a little bit dicey there once he kind of blew the second set, but he eventually bounced back as he won the third. So nice win there for Kashanov. The second time we've backed him as an outright on this show this year. Or I should say the second time we've won backing him as an outright this year. He won in Doha months ago, but both tournaments he won this year, we backed him, and he cashed us a nice 7-1 ticket. Now, the problem was we almost swept all 3 tournaments. However, Leheshka didn't have it as he lost to Agut in straight sets. Now, Leheshka, I did like the overall journey he was on. I liked the path, and I thought he looked good. Beat Tsitsipas, beat Giron, but at the end of the day, Agut was just really good. He turned the clock back, and he had himself a phenomenal tournament, but it just felt like Agut was kind of dominating the entire match. First set was 7-5, very misleading, as Agut did lead 5-2 with 1 break in the first set. Then eventually he gave the break back, serving for the set, and then he broke to win the set. So he ended up kind of regaining his composure, but it was 7-5, 6-1. Could have easily have been 6-3, 6-1, to be honest. So Lehecka really was never in it. Agut was just fantastic, and nice job by him winning his first title of the season. Even though he's past his prime, we know that he was a top 10 guy, fringe top 10 guy for most of his career, and he definitely showed his, I'd say, skill set and his overall consistency throughout the entire event. Agut, though, had a couple of potential danger spots, but he was able to overcome them. We saw him have a marathon win against Felix in the third match he played, but that was basically it. Only said he dropped the entire tournament, and he had a breaker against Echeverry, which could have been a bit dicey, but it wasn't, as Agut did win that one 7-2. But it just felt like Agut was the best player in the entire field for the entire week. Lehecka did a good job in general, but it did feel like Agut was just better than Lehecka. It wasn't fluky by any means. I thought Agut was really, really solid. And Lehecka, I would say that he kind of choked, but I can't even say that because I just thought Agut killed him. It was one of those spots where you figured the younger guy would be fresher at this stage in the week. Agut playing a bunch of matches, not winning a title all year. And then he said, no, I'm going to kick this guy's ass. And he did. So nice job by Agut there. But as a result, we have to settle for 2 outright wins instead of 3. So it is what it is. We'll take those. Plus, once again, split the lock and dog picks. Look for a successful week here in Basel and in Vienna. Now, before we get into the actual preview of the tournaments here in Basel and Vienna, I want to remember once again, they're brought to you by Fantasy because they have a lot of great items on their pick-a menu. And a reminder, they have the NFL, college football, MLB, MMA, WNBA, NASCAR, and more. WNBA, not so much relevant anymore because the Liberty did win the title. But either way, point is a lot of options there. They also have tennis, of course. Boostober is upon us, which means you're getting a spooky amount of profit boosts and much more. And with their NBA tipping off, you are looking at every NBA pick'em from the 19th to 27th getting boosted if you do an entry. You can now use special and boost on Arflex entries. And for this upcoming slate here, you know what? We have 2 Monday night games for some reason in the NFL. Not really sure why, but for this one, what do I want to go with here? You know what? I think for this one, I am going to go with Baker Mayfield interception. We'll go with interception. On that one, go with the higher. I think that at the end of the day, the Ravens will send some pressure. I do know that the Ravens are great against the run, not great against the pass, and I think that's going to cause Baker to become a bit of a pass funnel in this matchup. Give me the Baker higher, half a pick in that game. Either way, though, a reminder that when you do sign up, use the promo code SGPN to claim a special first-time deposit offer up to $1K in a bonus cash on a fantasy promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping what happened on Sunday in the 3 events there. And now it's time to get into the preview of the upcoming tournaments in Basel and in Vienna. Starting off with Basel, both tournaments start at the same time. I believe 8 a.m. Eastern on Monday, but I'm going to go alphabetical order because why not? So for Basel, you actually have a 2-time defending champion that you might have forgotten about, who's actually back here to defend it for the 2nd straight year as he's going for his 3rd straight win. Felix is actually a 2-time champion. Ended up beating Hurkacz last year, ended up beating Rune the year prior, and then he had a couple of years for COVID, and then Federer got the job done against him an hour. So point is, once again, Felix won it 2 times in a row, but then there was a massive gap based on COVID, so that's why Federer is listed here as the 3rd most recent winner. Either way, though, point is for the actual outright spoiler, we do not have any actual quarter odds. Apologies, couldn't find them. So we are going to stick with just the regular outrights to win the event. Anyway, starting off with the actual outrights here, you have Rublev at plus 550. You have Rune at 7-1. Shelton at 7-1. Once again, shop around. You have Humbert at 10-1. Tsitsipas at 10-1, Lehecka at 10-1, Felix 11-1, Ruud at 14-1, Fees at 16-1, Greek Sport 17-1, Chapo at 18-1. You have Shang at 25-1, Tabilo at 28-1, Wawrinka 30-1 as the home country Swiss guy. You're also looking at Gut off of the title going 30-1 to go back to back. Arnaldi 30-1, Schilch 30-1, Echeverry 35-1. You kind of get the point. Anyway, so for this actual tournament, the court speed should be pretty fast. Now, Vienna is a bit faster. In fact, Vienna is one of the fastest courts on the entire tour. So once again, expect a decent amount of holds in both events because both courts are pretty fast. Vienna, though, is the faster of these 2 tournaments, so keep that in mind. Anyway, for the actual outrights, you have Rublev, once again, who's the favorite. I can't take him. I get he's trying to boost his resume for Turin. Congratulations. I can't back him. He's a head case. We saw him show up at the last minute in Stockholm, and we saw him beat Mueller, and then he lost to Wawrinka. I can't trust him. He's been a head case all year, and 550, I get it's a decent price. as the favorite in the event, I can't pick him. Now, his draw is actually pretty good. I'll admit it. Has Borges in the first round. Then he has Chilich or Tabilo. Could be tricky. Should win that one. And then probably Shelton in the quarters. Not the easiest matchup. Point is, though, I just can't trust him to actually get over the finish line, as he has been really underwhelming for the last couple of months, especially. So ever since he beat Alcaraz on clay, he's been kind of a mess. So I'll pass on Rublev there. For Rune, I said before he did make the final a couple years ago, and then he lost to Felix. I can't really take him either. I understand that he has been playing a little bit better over the last couple of weeks, but I still don't trust him, so I can't take him at 7-1. So I'm tossing out the two favorites here. I just find them too unreliable, so I am going to go elsewhere. Shelton is intriguing to me. Now, Shelton, I mentioned before, is in the same section as Rublev. You are looking, though, at his first-round match. It is against Echeverry, which was pretty competitive when they faced off in the summer. I thought Shelton really did not play well, but eventually he found his way and got the job done in 3 sets, I believe. Point is, though, he's played better recently, and Echeverry I think is fine, but I think that Shelton is better, so I am going to go with him to win that one. Then either Mannarino or Wawrinka. You know, Mannarino did beat Shelton in the Australian Open, but I do think that Wawrinka will be extremely out of gas for this event. I get that it's in his home country, but when you play a semifinal, when you haven't won back-to-back matches in about a year, and then you have a deep run, I automatically assume at 39 years old, fatigue will be an issue. So I think that Mannarino can win that one, but I do think Mannarino is still not exactly in great form. Has been a lot better over the last couple of months. I'll give him credit where credit's due, but if you're asking me who I'm picking to win in a 2 out of 3, I'll go with Shelton, who I think has just the much better serve and should get the job done. Can he beat Rublev? I think he can. So I think when you're looking at this overall matchup, I think that Shelton can get it done. I see Shelton at around plus 750. Shopping around, I'll take that. I think that he's got the firepower. Said before that Felix won it twice in a row. You saw Federer get there, but Hurkacz made the final last year. Good serves tend to go a long way in this event, so I am going to go with Shelton to perform well with the serve, to get the job done, and to potentially win another title. Now, as for the other options, I am going to go with Humbert at 11-1. We saw him lose in that final, that absolute marathon against Fees, and I do think that, once again, he's a very solid hardcourt player. We know that he won a hardcourt title earlier this year. He won one at the end of last year as well. Just a solid overall hardcourt player, a pretty underrated serve, a solid forehand lefty, and he's got some movement to him. I think that he's got a pretty decent path as well, but I like his overall game, and I thought he looked good against Fees after kind of struggling in the middle of the season. But you're looking at his overall path, and I do think it is a pretty manageable one. Has Kim, who has been playing well, a Swiss qualifier, but I think that it's a step up in competition for him. Then either Baena or Arnaldi. Arnaldi should be fun, but Arnaldi's not the best server. I think Humbert would beat him. Then potentially facing off against Rune, who could lose in theory to Griekspoor or Jari, so that could be a bit of a difficult quartet there, and then you get to feast on the scraps. But he's in the Ruud half, and you know my thoughts on Ruud this year. He looked a lot better in the last event, even though Griekspoor beat him. But I think that Humbert at 11-1 in this type of event in the hardcourt portion of the year, I just think that it suits his play style quite well. And 11-1 is a good price, so I am going to go with him as well as my second pick for the outrights. For the last one, this one's going to piss people off, because I've been writing him off and roasting him for months, but I kind of have to do it. If you are a 2-time defending champion and you can be found at 11-1, I kind of have to take you. So I am going to go with, hold your nose here, Felix, and hopefully it doesn't stink too badly. But you are looking at his overall path as the 2-time champion, and his path is pretty manageable. Once again, he's going to be in the bottom half in the Ruud section. He has Baez in the first round, has been a mess lately. Has Perricard or Duckworth, which is not really threatening at all. Also has a matchup against either Ruud, Agut, Shang, or Chapo. That's just an insanely difficult quartet of people. So I do think that section is going to kill each other, and then Felix can definitely get an easier path to the quarters and maybe even the semis. But I think you're looking at Felix as a 2-time champion. I think that the 11-1 price makes sense based on his current form. I think I'm going to have to risk it. It's 11-1 for a 2-time champion. Like, that's a very good deal, and I do think his skill set translates well, obviously, to the courts here. Give me 11-1 as my last pick for the outrights. Now, I thought about some long shots. Couldn't take it. Looking at the veteran players, though, not going to take Agut, not going to take Wawrinka. I'm fading pretty much all the guys that had deep runs in last week's events, because you have a 1,000 event coming up, and I do wonder how much stamina these guys are going to conserve. It does involve this event, but do I think Tommy Paul's going to go all out in the other event I'm about to preview? Not really. I think he might, but in reality, when you have a 1,000 event with a lot more prize money coming up the week after, a lot of players might retire early, or they might just withdraw from the event because they know that they have a bigger event on the horizon. So based on that, I think I am going to go with the Felix play here. Has not been great. I'm aware of it. Did end up losing to Agut in a marathon. He was the only guy that beat Agut in a set. Like, people don't understand how good Agut actually was in that tournament. And the fact is, Felix had him on the ropes, lost in a final set breaker. So that loss kind of aged very well. And I think that 11-1 is a good price. See somebody asking if I like Fees as a flyer. I do. The problem is Fees has really had two great runs all year, and it just so happened to win the events. We saw him win on hardcourt a couple weeks ago, saw him win in Hamburg on clay a couple months ago. Besides that, he's kind of done nothing for the entire year. I think his path's pretty decent. I mean, you're looking at Fees, who has Altmaier in the first round. Leheshka might be exhausted after the run that he had in the last week, playing on Sunday, of course. And then you're looking at what could be Tsitsipas or maybe Sarundalo, Dzanchop, or Bublik. Also a really tricky quartet of players. So I think Fees has a shot. I mean, you're looking at the actual price for Fees at like 16-1. I don't hate it. Do I think he's going to win? No, I don't think he's going to. But I do think at that price, I don't hate it. The quarter's definitely tricky, but he's on the easier half of the quarter. So it could be worse. I'll put it that way. But I think when you're comparing his odds, for example, at 16-1 to Tsitsipas, who has Sarundalo in the first round, Dzanchop or Bublik in the second round, and then either Leheshka or Fees in the third round, I like Fees' odds a lot more when you look at the draw compared to Tsitsipas. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for my 3 picks there officially for the outrights in Basel. Now it's time for Vienna. So Vienna is going to be a fun event in general. This is one of the faster events on the entire tour in terms of court speed. For this one, for the outright, Zverev is back at plus 275. Paul's at 8-1, fresh off the title. You have Draper at 850. De Minaur, after his loss to Gaston, at plus 850. Dimitrov at 9-1 after losing in the final in Stockholm. Berrettini is at 12-1. Makic at 16-1. You have Tiafoe at 18-1. Gashanov off the title at 19-1. Musetti 20-1. Monfils at 22-1. Papiron at 28-1. Mensik at around 30-1. Fekina 30-1. Kikmanovic at 35-1. You have Struff and Nori both at 40-1. Nakashima's 40-1. Mikkelson's 40-1. You kind of get the point. If you want to go for longer shots, you have Nishikori at 50-1. And if you want to go for the sob story of all sob stories, or I should say the true underdog story of the event, if you want to go Team in his final ever event, you can get him at 65-1. Team's going to retire after this event. Of course, it's in Austria, and it's going to be his farewell tournament. So keep that in mind. Team has been one of my favorite players when he was in his prime. Then I was a realist about it, and I made a bunch of money fading him over the last couple of years. It is what it is. It's business. Point is, though, Team is going to be here with the crowd. He's not winning, obviously. Can he win a match against Darderi in the first round? Sure. So hopefully we see Team win something to end his career on a high note. I remember I backed Feliciano Lopez in his final match. I believe that was in Mallorca on grass a couple years ago, and he won. Lost in the next round. Didn't really matter. Point is, I hope that Team can at least have one moment to have a positive to end his career. Hopefully he gets that against Darderi, who's been a mess. If there's a guy to face right now in the first round of an event when you're looking for a farewell victory, Darderi might be the guy, because Darderi hasn't really won a match in a couple months. So I think you're looking at, once again, Team being a fun story to keep an eye on. He's not going to win anything worth a damn in this tournament, but hopefully we see him not embarrass himself out there in the first round. Anyway, for the actual outrights, I think I am going to go with Zverev as the favorite here. I got to mention actually the recent winners. So you have Sinner beating Medvedev last year. Medvedev beat Chapo the year prior. Zverev beat Tiafoe, and Rublev beat Sonego. So a decent amount of firepower there, as you can tell. Sinner being a good server. Medvedev, we know, has a pretty decent first serve. Second serve, not so much. Chapo, though, a lot of firepower. Zverev has a good serve. First serve especially. Rublev's kind of the same boat. So serving does get you pretty far in this event, which is why I mentioned before that the court speeds will be very quick for these matches. Now, Zverev I am going to go with, former champion, at 3-1. He's been resting a bit, and I do think that he's going to be in line for a good showing here. I think his skill set translates well to Vienna, and I do think that he'll be able to get the job done. Look at his overall path, pretty favorable. Has an Austrian, a wild card in the first round, who he should bury. But then Mickelson or Giro, not the easiest second round match, but I think that Zverev's better. Giro might be exhausted after making a deep run in Stockholm. not Stockholm, sorry, a deep run in Antwerp before losing to Lehechka in 3. I think that Zverev's better. I think he'll win against either guy. Might be close, but then he has either Musetti, Sonego, Monfils, or Hallis. Even though Musetti did beat him on the clay swing, on hard court, Zverev's better, so I'll go with him there. Besides that, though, you're looking at a pretty decent draw. He's on the same half as Draper or Dimitrov, but Dimitrov, I think, might drop out, honestly. He was really on fumes in the last couple of rounds, and he's got a 1,000 event in Paris coming up, so I can see Dimitrov skipping, if I'm being honest here. It wouldn't shock me if that happens, so I think that could be a reason why I'm staying away from Dimitrov in this tournament. But I mentioned before, he might face off against Draper in the semis. Give me Draper at plus 850. Said a second ago, I think Dimitrov is a decent candidate to drop out. We saw Makic retire mid-tournament last event, and he's going to be here as well. So you're looking at a Draper being a massive favorite against Nishikori in the first round, then either Thiem or Darderi. Basically a bye in the second round for either him or Nishikori to get into the quarters. Then you're looking at Dimitrov, Zhang, Makic, and Morozin. Not the easiest quartet of players, and I said before that Dimitrov might once again retire or withdraw based on how tired he was in the back I'd say 2 matches of that last event in Stockholm. Makic retired mid-tournament in the second round, so I do wonder how healthy he actually is. I like the draw for Draper, and I know Zverev can be a head case at times, but Draper we saw very sharp on hard court, made a deep run before losing to Makic before losing to Humbert in the semis where he ended up retiring. But the point is he made a deep run in the US Open. He's a very solid hard court player. I think plus 850 with that draw is pretty favorable. I'll go with him as my second choice. Now, for the other options here, once again, I am going to skip some guys that did play last week who made deep runs, so I'm not going to go with them. Now, for the actual big serve, you make an argument for Berrettini. Fucsovics, then either Tiafoe or Nori, then either Paul, Nakashima, Seabolt Wild, or Kashanov. That's a really difficult section, so I really don't want anybody from that section. That just looks very difficult. So I'm going to pass on those, but I am going to stay with the bottom half because de Minaur is the favorite in that bottom half, and he did not look that great in the last event. We saw him win in his first match against Baena. Didn't look great, went to 3 sets. Then he lost to Gaston. The movement was not great. So I am concerned about that, but his serve's definitely improved. But you're looking at Caboli, Fokina, you're looking at those guys. I think de Minaur actually can lose in the first 2 rounds here, potentially. But you're looking at Papiron, you're looking at Mensik, you are looking at Kekmanovic and Navone. Out of those 4, the best draw is easily Kekmanovic because Navone's been better on hard court, still not great. And Papiron and Mensik should be fun. But for the price, I think I am going to go with Mensik at 33-1. Thought he played well in the event a couple of weeks ago. We saw him lose to Djokovic in a 3-setter in the semis, but he's been playing good tennis. We know that he is a solid player on hard court in general. Made the final in Doha before losing to Kashanov earlier this year, and we saw him actually go through qualifying in this event, as Mensik looked pretty good. So that's the one concern I have with Mensik, is that if you can get him to win the quarter, I don't mind that. But he's, for example, about 27 rankings below Papiron, and he's favored in the match. So I think that there's a pretty decent path for him to get by. But he got through actual qualifying, beat Richard, and he ended up beating Mueller in straight sets in both matches. But I think Mensik at 33-1, who we saw make a semi in a pretty loaded field about 2 weeks ago, I think has value at this current price in this overall quarter. So I am going to go with Mensik at 33-1. If you want to go with Papiron, you can. But I think Mensik being favored is kind of telling to me. So I'm going to go with Mensik to get the job done at 33-1 as my long shot. So once again, going relatively chalky on the events. Not taking the favorites, though. So I have been spacing it. I did for the Vienna tournament, but still. Point is, I'm going relatively front runnerish, but I am also going to throw in a bit of a long shot for the Vienna event, because weird things could happen. And with the big serve and the overall speed of the courts, I think that you're looking at Mensik, who could make a deep run if the first serve is clicking. Anyway, once again, for the outright recap, for the actual outrights in Basel, going to go with Shelton at 750, Humbert at 11-1, and Felix, as much as I can't stand him, at 11-1 as my last choice. For Vienna, give me Zverev at 3-1, Draper at 850, and give me Mensik at 33-1 as my long shot. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the outrights, and now it's time for the lock and dog picks. But for that one, remember once again that we are brought to you by BetUS, because BetUS has been around for more than 30 years, and you could easily use the book by depositing with crypto, get lightning fast payouts. U.S. players are always welcome. Sign up and deposit $100 and have a chance to win a 1960 Ford Mustang. Use our link to sign up and get a 125% deposit bonus in first 2 deposits. Go to sportsgambling.com to BetUS, promo code SGPN, and we send you BetUS, America's favorite sports book. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. A reminder that Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom models in seconds. Get predictions on moneyline spreads, props, and totals. Build your own model. You can copy a model from the leaderboard or press build model for me. Rhythm will give you predictions immediately on every game and player props. They also have a bunch of stats, research, and analysis to make you an even better bettor. And a reminder, you can try it out for free. If you actually want to see if you like it or not, use the 7-day free trial today by going to sportscom.com/rhythm, sportscom.com/RATHMM. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished previewing the outrights for Basel and for Vienna. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I am going to go to Vienna. Actually, I am going to go to a matchup between Berrettini and Fucsovics. Should be a fun one. I am picking a bit of a marathon in that one. I am going to go with the over 22.5 games, -125 as my lock. First reason, Berrettini's been no stranger to overs recently. We know that he's not exactly the best returner on the planet, but his serve should translate very well to the courts here, and I do think you're going to see a pretty, once again, hold-heavy, I'd say, match between these two. But 3 of Berrettini's last 4 matches have gone over this total. Meanwhile, 2 of Fucsovics' last 3 have gone over as well. Vienna is a fast surface, and you are looking at Berrettini being an elite server. And the head-to-head's been competitive. Each of the last 2 head-to-head meetings did not end in straight sets. I see a close one. I think Berrettini probably wins, but I think you're looking at what could be maybe even 2 breakers, maybe a 3-setter. But I think there would be a tiebreak in there. Tiebreak, I believe, was +110 on DraftKings. I can buy that. So I think you're going to get, once again, at least one set full of holds, and then you might get a 6-4 on the other end for a nice win there. But give me the over, 22.5 games with the fast surface here with Berrettini playing as the lock at -125. For the dog, I am going to go to the event in Basel. And even though Wawrinka did end up making a deep run in Stockholm, I think I might come back to bite him here against Mannarino. I am going to go with the over 2.5 sets at +130. Now, Wawrinka, said before, did make a deep run. 39 years old. First time he's won back-to-back matches in a year plus, and he made it to the semis. So, once again, I think fatigue could be an issue. Mannarino, though, has been competitive lately. Not winning a ton of matches, but the point is he has been at least winning a set in those matches. 6 of Mannarino's last 8 matches did not end in straight sets, and you are looking at the head-to-head. Mannarino's quietly 3-0 lifetime against Wawrinka, and each of the last 2 meetings did not end in straight sets. But Wawrinka, I thought, played well in Stockholm. He's got crowd support aplenty in this one because it's going to be in Switzerland. But I think Mannarino, who's always given him problems in the head-to-head and with his tendency to look sharp for a set before falling apart, I think Wawrinka can start off decently. Fatigue will play a factor. You know Mannarino is going to make every match physical because he keeps the ball in play with his extremely flat overall ground strokes. I see a close matchup here. I'll go with the over 2.5 sets. I think Mannarino can win, but I'm going to avoid that instead because he has a hard time actually closing matches. I'm going to go with the over 2.5 sets at +130 as my dog instead. So once again, the picks here for the lock and dog. The lock's going to be on Berrettini and Fucsovics over 22.5 games at -125. Dog will be on Mannarino and Wawrinka over 2.5 sets at +130. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. A reminder that you can find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show. I'm also going to be on the Mothership Show, the Sports Game Podcast with Sean and Ryan on Monday night. Talk about some NBA for the start of the season. Besides that, find me on the MLB show as we're going to do some World Series stuff in the next week. And of course, find me here. Next episode will be in the quarterfinals for Basel and for Vienna. A reminder as well, before I forget, please like and subscribe on YouTube. And a reminder, please leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple for the podcast. And a reminder, check out the merch store as well for Tennis Gambling Podcast stuff. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.